Thus Midian was subdued before the Israelites and did not raise its head again. They were done for. Done. During Gideon's lifetime, the land enjoyed peace 40 years. Jerubbaal, that's the name that was given to Gideon. It means let Baal contend with him, basically. So if Baal has a problem with Gideon's opposition, then Baal can take care of it. That's what the name means. Jerubbaal, son of Joash, went back home to live. He had 70 sons of his own, for he had many wives. Now, the many wives and the 70 sons indicates what? Wealth, yeah. And probably power as well. And the sheet that I handed out to you last week indicated several, not explicit indicators, but kind of sideways indicators, hidden indicators, that Gideon probably served as a king or a king-like ruler for at least the city of Ophrah, city of Ophrah, where he lived, and the surrounding area. Now, he probably had respect throughout Israel, even if he didn't hand down decrees and laws and rules that they all obeyed, okay? But he probably had authority as the lead ruler or king within a regional area. His concubine, continue verse 31, his concubine who lived in Shechem also bore him a son, whom he named Abimelech. Now, a couple of things about this sentence. It says his concubine. It doesn't say one of his concubines who lived in Shechem. We don't know if he had other concubines or not. Probably he did. But we're interested in just this one specific concubine who lived in Shechem. Shechem was south of Ophrah, about 8 miles, as near as we can tell. So he could hike down there, ride a donkey down there, and visit with her, and then go back home, probably in a day or two. Anyway, she bore him a son, and he named him, that means that Gideon named his son by this concubine, Abimelech. Abimelech is a sentence name, as many folks in that day had, and it didn't have a word like Ray or Raymond or Jackson. They had a sentence for a name. And Abimelech, translated from Hebrew into English, is my father the king. So, this brings up a question. If Gideon named his son my father the king, who was the king? Who was the father? Was he talking about himself? If he was, it adds to the evidence that Gideon actually functioned as a king of sorts. The NIV commentary seems to think that Gideon said the word father referred to the Lord. Okay? And we know from our studies of Gideon over the past few weeks that he had a bit of a problem, cognitive dissonance. One day he would act like a true believer, and another day he would act like a reprobate. So we can only guess at exactly what the writer of the book of Judges meant, and we can only guess about what Gideon meant, because Gideon didn't write any footnotes, and the writer of Judges didn't write any footnotes. He said, okay, all right, we know this might cause a problem in 3,000 years. So here's the real story. We didn't get that. So we have to just kind of put pieces together. So that's kind of up in the air about exactly what he meant. He could have been gone either way, and, either answer is good, unless you really want Gideon to be a man of faith 100% of the time, which apparently he was not. All right, let's see. Gideon, the son of Joash, died at a good old age. Now, we talked last time about that phrase, died at a good old age, is only used of 3 people. Gideon's one of them, David's one of them, and who was the other guy? Was it Abraham? Huh? Abraham. Yeah, okay. Abraham, David, and Gideon. So that's kind of special. And he was buried in the tomb of his father Joash in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Verse 33, no sooner had Gideon died than the Israelites again prostituted themselves to the Baals. Now this is that cycle of apostasy, right? The Israelites would leave God and start worshiping these Canaanite gods. And then God would send usually an outside invader to oppress them until they finally realize, hey, we got a problem here, and cry out to God for help. And then God would send a judge to take care of the situation, and by his own grace would send a judge to free them from the foreign oppression. And things would be good for a while until they went apostate again. Cycle just keeps on going around through the whole book. Okay. They set up Baal-berith. Now Baal, we know about Baal. That was the Canaanite god, fertility god. And Berith, it was thought to be a local subset of the overall Baal worship. And Berith means of the covenant. And the covenant was thought to be a local group of Baptists who said, we don't like the way those guys over there worship Baal. We don't like the way those guys over there worship Baal. And we want to worship Baal the way we want to worship Baal. And everybody in the local neighborhood of cities said, yeah, we can agree on that. And so the Berith then, they covenanted together to worship Baal this way. Sent out little flyers around town and said, okay, here's the way we're going to do it. No, but that's what the word means. Baal of the covenant. And it was evidently a local style of worship for Baal. And the temple for this Baal worship was in Shechem. Well, I didn't put Shechem up here, did I? But Shechem is the town about where the concubine was, and they had a temple there. And we're going to see toward the end of chapter 9 that Shechem was destroyed in the fight that came up between Abimelech and some other folks. And there's solid archaeological evidence of this temple being part of that destruction. And apparently the Shechem was never rebuilt. It was just abandoned. And we have, modern day archaeological evidence to that, which is nice when archaeology backs up what we have in Scripture. We'd like to see that happen. All right. They set up Baal-berith as their god and did not remember the Lord their God who had rescued them from the hands of all their enemies on every side. Verse 35. They also failed to show kindness to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, for all the good things he had done for them. So not only did they reject God, they rejected Gideon. They forgot about him. He was a hero. That's like forgetting about George Washington. Huh? How can you do that? Or Davy Crockett. How can you forget about Davy Crockett? I don't know. But they forgot about Gideon and did not honor him nor his family. We're going to see that firsthand in chapter 9. Okay, you ready to move ahead? All right, let me give you some things about about chapter 9. Chapter 9 is an oddity in the book of Judges. There is no judge in chapter 9. There's an anti-judge in chapter 9, Abimelech. Abimelech is an anti-judge. So this is not a record of delivery from external threat, but a story of internal politics. A lot of political stuff going on. And we're gonna draw some parallels, and I probably won't have to do it for you. You're probably going to do it yourself. Between what happened in chapter 9 with Abimelech and what continues down through human history, and even right here in the good old U.S. of A. So we'll see that, and you'll be amazed. There's an extraordinary emphasis on detail in the book of in chapter 9. It is the longest single narrative in Judges. You know, other books you got is divided up in pieces. Chapter 9 is start to finish one long single narrative, and it's the only one like that in the book of Judges. It has a preoccupation with intrigue and violence of Abimelech and his Shechemites. Shechemite, John, is a person from Shechem. Okay? Write that down in case I forget it. Yahweh, the Lord, is silent in chapter 9. And he's replaced by a generic Elohim. So when you see the name of God in chapter 9, it's always just G-O-D, never L-O-R-D, never Yahweh, okay? So this is a canonization of sorts, and indicates the level of canonization in Israel at that time. That you'd have a whole chapter in the book of Judges, and the Lord is never mentioned. The Lord Yahweh, the deliverer, the covenant God of Israel. The story is focused on one small part of the country, that is Shechem. It all takes place in Shechem, where this child was born to Gideon's concubine.
Hey, Ray, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how many wives did Gideon have? 100?
We don't know. The Bible says many wives.
So, why have a concubine? Why isn't she just another wife?
Well, in some parts of the ancient East, and sometimes even in Scripture, they were given the rights of a wife. Okay? In the Old Testament accounts, the difference mainly is that a concubine was almost purely taken as a woman because of what she did for the man occasionally. Well, that's a good question, Jim. With 70 wives, why do you need one more concubine down there? Well, I don't know. I don't know. But generally, concubines, if they were considered a wife, they were second level down wife. I better not go any further there. Okay. Jotham's name, who we're going to see in just a moment, right here, who is Gideon's son. Okay, Jotham is Gideon's son, not by the concubine, but one of his wives, one of his many wives. Jotham was, I think, the youngest son. But his name means the Lord is perfect / honest. The Lord is perfect / honest. So at least with his last child, in giving out names to his children, Gideon picked the Lord is perfect as the name for his for this particular son. Okay. Let's go ahead and begin reading chapter 9, and we've got numerous places we're going to stop and work on things as we go through. All right, chapter 9, verse 1. Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem. You know, Abimelech had brothers by another mother, right? One of these many wives that Gideon had, you could say they were brothers by another mother. I mean, they were stepbrothers. But now we're talking about the brothers by the same mother, not necessarily by Gideon. So that the structure of this sentence indicates that maybe this concubine that Gideon had down in Shechem had sons by other men or another man. And Abimelech considered them his brothers. He didn't consider the sons by Gideon up in Ophrah were his brothers. They were his half-brothers, yeah, but he didn't consider them brothers. So let's read that again. Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem and said to them and to all his mother's clan, "Ask all the citizens of Shechem, which is better for you, to have all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons rule over you." So here's an indication then that Gideon in some way ruled over an area that at least included the town of Shechem. Okay? Because of what Abimelech said here. And then, of course, after Gideon died, if there was a dynasty set up where the rule passed from the father to the sons, which is what is implied here in his words, that there was a dynasty, and these 70 sons up in Ophrah had become rulers. Okay? So he says, "Ask all the citizens of Shechem, which is better for you, to have all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons rule over you, or just one man? Remember, I am your flesh and blood." He said, okay, people of Shechem, you can have those 70 sons that are umpteen miles away rule over you, or you can have me. I'll rule over you. I'm one of you. You're my kinfolks, a bunch of my kinfolks. I love you. I love you, and you love me, and I'll be such a good ruler. You don't want those people up there in Ophrah ruling over you. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. Remember, I'm your flesh and blood. All right, let's see. The word citizens, what does the CSB have there in verse 2? Ask all the citizens in NIV. What does the CSB say? Citizens, okay. All right. The Hebrew actually means aristocracy. These were not the beggars out sitting in front of the temple begging for money. These are the wealthy and the powerful. So he's talking to the wealthy and the powerful. I need for you to vote for me. When it comes time to vote, I need for you to vote for me. Of course, there was not a vote. There was a vote, but there wasn't a vote. Verse 3, when the brothers repeated all this to the citizens or aristocracy of Shechem, they were inclined to follow Abimelech. For they said, he is our brother. So all the brothers that he had there by this mother, who was the concubine of Gideon, were for him. They were going to vote for him. Verse 4, they gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal-berith. 70 shekels. All right, so they took money out of the treasure of the temple that was for the worship of Baal, and they gave it to Abimelech. Campaign cash, tax deductible. okay? They gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal-berith, and Abimelech used it to hire reckless adventurers. I love that phrase, reckless adventurers. In modern Western history, what would reckless adventurers represent? Help me out. I can't understand. Bad guys. Bad guys, definitely. A gang. If you watch Westerns, you watch enough of them, there's always a bad guy, right? There's always a bad guy. Oh, you said bankers. I'm with you. Well, I'm not going to go there. I might need a line of credit. But in a Western, there's not only a bad guy, but he has henchmen, right? He's got followers. Not a posse, a gang. Ne'er-do-wells. Yeah. And why do they stick with their bad guy leader? Is it because they like him? Oh, he's such a nice bad guy. Money. They're going to get a cut of the action. A cut of the action. They gather around this guy to do bad things to nice people because of the money involved. Well, look what's happening right here. They gave him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal-berith, and Abimelech used it to hire reckless adventurers. I love that phrase, reckless adventurers. I mean, they're scallywags. Scallywags. So Abimelech already, you can tell he's in trouble. He's in trouble because he has to hire the people that vote for him. And he has to hire the people that are going to do his dirty work for him. All right, let's go ahead. Who became his followers. He had to pay his followers. He's a gang, got a gang following him around, and he pays them. Verse 5, he went to his father's home in Ophrah, that's Gideon's home, and on one stone murdered his 70 brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal. Okay, first of all, that's a horrible thing to do, right? And the reader who's not aware of what's going on is kind of caught. What? What? And it tells you everything you need to know about Abimelech, does it not? To kill one person is bad enough, but to kill 70? Your political opponents, to kill 70? Whew. All right. It gets worse. He went to his father's home in Ophrah, and on one stone, that's code word, a code phrase. When you went down to the temple and you took your lamb or your bull, oxen, or whatever, and offered that animal as a sacrifice to the god that's being worshipped there, the animal was placed on a big flat stone and slaughtered on the stone. And you can see that in other places. Let's see if I've got them written down right here. Where is it? Oh, yeah. On one stone. Abimelech's 70 brothers were slaughtered like sacrificial animals.
Did they just come and lay down for him?
No, you'd have to tie them up and throw it up on there and then slaughter it. In effect, he inaugurated his kingship by using his Israelite half-brothers as his coronation sacrifices. There's another use of this phrase, on one stone. When Saul, in battle, defeated an enemy, I want to say it's the Philistines, but don't quote me on that. His men, a report was brought to Saul and reported that the spoils of that victory, the men had brought some animals, and they were hungry. It was time for supper, and so they slaughtered the animals just willy-nilly out on the ground without draining the blood first. And the law of Moses is very specific. You will not eat an animal that contains the blood in it. You got to get rid of the blood because the life is in the blood. And symbolically, you drain the life out of the animal by draining the blood. And that's still practiced today, I think, normally in slaughtering animals. You don't slaughter the animal before bleeding it first. But hang on just a second. Saul, in response to that report, said, "Whoa, we can't do this. Go get a big stone and bring it here." So they did. He went and got a big stone, and he handed down the order, said, "If you're going to slaughter an animal, on the stone, boys, on the stone." All right. So there was a slaughtering place. So that reinforces what happened here with Abimelech and these 70 sons of Gideon. They were slaughtered. 70 at a time? No. He didn't, bring in a big old bomb and blow them all up. 70 at once. That would have been clean. Well, not really clean. But the trauma would have been short-lived. He slaughtered them each one at a time. How long does it take to kill 70 people one at a time? It takes a while. That's like something that bad guys down through history are remembered for. Instead of lining up 12 people in front of a firing squad, you line them up one at a time. Then the people behind sweat until it's their turn. 70, one at a time, slaughtered, and like the commentary says, basically as a coronation sacrifice of worship to Baal. Ron, question? You sure? Okay. So the heinousness of Abimelech's action is brought forth in this passage right here. All right, we're going to go ahead. Verse 5, he went to his father's home in Ophrah and on one stone murdered his 70 brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal. But Jotham, right here, the youngest son, Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, escaped by hiding. Verse 6, then all the citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, we don't know. We don't know what that is or where it is. There's speculation that it is part of Shechem, like the temple or worship place. Then the citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo gathered beside the great tree at the pillar in Shechem to crown Abimelech king. So Abimelech had eliminated the opposition in a horrendous way using paid hoodlums to kill the competition, except one guy got away. One guy, the youngest son, got away. Go ahead, verse 7. When Jotham was told about this, he climbed up on top of Mount Gerizim and shouted to them. Now, Mount Gerizim is located right there at Shechem. All of these things are right in that valley of Jezreel, where you've got these several mountain peaks around and hills, and the river and the plain, and so he climbed up on this mountain, Mount Gerizim, and shouted to them, meaning the people of Shechem. Listen to me, citizens of Shechem, so that God may listen to you. He said, I'm going to tell you some truth here, and I'm going to tell you what you need to do, and if you do it, then you'll be on God's side, not Baal's side. Verse 8. Now, beginning with verse 8, scholars, Bible scholars, and others consider down through verse 15 or thereabouts. Consider this to be the finest example of fable, F-A-B-L-E, F-A-B-L-E, finest example of fable in Scripture. Now, a fable is kind of like a parable. It's a story meant to convey a moral message, and it takes inanimate objects and makes them come alive. They speak, and you're going to see that the trees are going to speak here in this fable. And they speak a message that is truth, moral correctness, morally right. And so Jotham uses this time-honored and cherished method back in Old Testament society to convey his message to the people of Shechem about what they should do. All right, let's go ahead and look at this fable. Verse 8. One day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. All right, first of all, we need to know who the king of trees is in the Middle East, in this area. Can you guess? Huh? Actually, the cypress of Lebanon, they were the king of plants. You could do any construction you wanted to do. You could go to Lebanon or the hills of Lebanon, and you could cut one of these cypress trees, and you could do it. Where you want to build a ship, or if you wanted to put together beams to hold up the roof of the temple, or you wanted to make planks to keep your walls, keep the wind from blowing through the walls, or to put under your feet and keep you out of the mud, you went and bought some cypress from Lebanon. So that was considered, and we're going to see it in the as we get to the end of the fable here, that idea is upheld. But verse 8, let's read verse 8 again. One day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Be our king." Now, olives, the olive tree was highly treasured, yes. And if you think about all the things that you could do with an olive, you could just eat them. They're good. Love olives. On your salad, on your pizza. I just pick them up and pop it in your mouth and eat them. You make cooking oil. Very healthy. Just won't handle a bunch of high temperatures, so don't try and fry bacon in olive oil. You'll burn it. Medicine, applying oil to a wound, and that practice holds true today. You may not use olive oil per se, but you will use maybe a petroleum jelly if you've had a little surgery. The thing that doctor's going to tell you to do is you dress that wound every day or twice a day. Don't get it wet. And when you dress it, you put a little Vaseline on it, and it'll keep a scar from forming. Well, Vaseline is an oil, right? Olive oil. So they were doing it 3,000 years ago, dressing wounds with olive oil. It can be used as a medicine, a laxative, as a lubricant. You could soften leather with olive oil. You could put it in your lamp and burn it for light. It was an ingredient for perfume. You could use it as a sacrificial offering when you went to worship the Lord. And you could use it in anointing ceremonies. Pour a little oil on that deacon before you ordain him. Just teasing. All right, so go back to verse 9. But the olive tree answered, "Should I give up my oil by which both gods and men are honored to hold sway over trees?" The olive tree, the answer is, hey, I've got stuff to do. I've got stuff to do that's important. Humanity needs what I have to give. I don't have time to go and be a king and tell all the trees how to live. Hang on to that. Okay? Verse 10. Next, the tree said to the fig tree, come and be our king. Now, figs, fig Newtons. My wife loves fig Newtons. I mean, if she goes to the grocery store and she's not thinking about me, she's thinking about Margie, she'll get two things. Number one, she'll get tweets. You know about tweets? What's those little marshmallow animals? Peeps. Excuse me, peeps. You know what peeps are? She'll get peeps, and she'll get fig Newtons. I don't like either one of them. So she's safe. She put those things in the cabinet, I won't touch them. They're hers. She can have them. But figs are good. Huh? Oh, yeah. Fig preserves. She loves fig preserves. We've got a sister-in-law down in Georgia that has figs and makes fig preserves. I don't like fig preserves either. So they say for her, I'll take some jelly, but I don't want fig preserves. But the fig tree, next the tree said to the fig tree, come and be our king. Verse 11, but the fig tree implied, should I give up my fruit so good and sweet to hold sway over the trees? The fig tree says, hey, I got things to do. I've got important things to do to serve society. I've got a business to run. I've got employees to pay. I've got customers that need my fruit. I'm not going to waste my time ruling over trees. Let's go ahead. Verse 12. Then the trees said to the vine, talking about grapevines, okay? Come and be our king. But the vine said, should I give up my wine, which cheers both gods and men, to hold sway over the trees? Well, it's not only wine, it's grapes are good to eat. Marge and I eat a lot of grapes. We eat fruit. We'll have a meal with protein and some carbs and almost always some kind of fruit. And grapes, we'll go down to the grocery store and get these nice big fat grapes, seedless, and they're sweet. And you eat those things, and man, they're good. So, you don't have to make wine out of it. Make grape juice. I like grape juice, except it stains my teeth real bad. What? Oh, you remember the scene? Y'all remember the scene in Lord of the Rings? And there's a king that goes crazy and tries to burn his son before his son's dead. Y'all remember that scene? And this king, they have a scene with him eating at the table, and he's eating grapes, and it just falls down all in his beard and drips down on his. John knows. It's a great scene. If you don't remember that, they're coming out with a new version of Lord of the Rings. They're gonna re-release it, all three movies. And they're going to throw in all the edited footage. So a movie that was 3 hours long is now going to be 5 hours long. No, I don't know how they're going to work that. But I read that on the internet, so it must be true. All right, verse 13. But the vine answered, should I give up my wine, which cheers both gods and men, to hold sway over trees? I've got stuff that people want. I've got to produce these grapes so that men can make their grape juice and they can make their wine and they can eat sweet grapes and get fat and happy. I don't have time to go rule over a bunch of trees. Finally, verse 14, the tree said to the thorn bush, come and be our king. Now, what good's a thorn bush? I'll give you one use for a thorn bush. When I was in East Asia, back a while back, you know, we sent a lot of teams to East Asia to do missionary work and basically agricultural, helping farmers. And as a number one, a way to show them the love of Christ and the love of God, and to help them to live better lives, and also to open a door for the reception of the gospel. So I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in one of those trips, and we were working with a mountain village, actually several villages, but it was in this mountain circle of mountains, and there's a valley in between, and these villages were around on the mountainside, and we were putting in some water pipe, and I got back up in the woods. I forgot what I was doing up in there. I was counting feet or something, measuring, or I can't remember what it was. But I got outside of the perimeter of the village, and I was trying to get back to where I was supposed to be, because I knew I wasn't supposed to be way up there. And they had made these fences or barriers to keep their animals in the village. And you know what these barriers were made of? They were about this high and about that thick. This stuff right here, these thorns. I didn't think I was ever going to get home. I thought I was going to die right there. They'd have to send out the rescue squad for me, because I couldn't get through those walls of brambles. That's the only use I know for this kind of stuff. It's the lowest of the low, the most useless stuff there is. They had found a way to use it, though, like very resourceful people. And I'm sure it kept the animals in, because it kept me out. Kept me out. All right, verse 15. The thorn bush said to the trees, if you really want to anoint me king over you, come and take refuge in my shade. That in itself is hilarious. How much shade does a thorn bush give? About that much. What are you likely to get if you try to get that much shade from a thorn bush? You're likely to get some thorns in you, punctured. Come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, then let fire come out of the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon. All right, that's the cedars of Lebanon. I got cypress. Cypress is not correct. Somebody should have called that to my attention. Cedars. Cedars of Lebanon, not cypress. Cypress is in South Georgia. If you go to Okefenokee, and you should go sometime, if you're down in Georgia, the Okefenokee Swamp in South Georgia is a beautiful place, and it's full of cypress trees, and they're gorgeous. But here it says, if you decide that you're not going to come and rest in my shade, says the thorn bush, if you decide you can't handle that and take refuge in my shade, then you know what's going to happen? Fire's going to come out of me and consume you. That's a threat. That's a promise. And it's going to consume the cedars of Lebanon. The fire will be so fierce that the most valued plant, the most capable plant, the most resourceful plant available, the most resourceful tree available will be consumed by the fire that comes out of me. Now hang on to that, all right? All right, then verse 16, the writer of Judges, through this person, Jotham, gives the answer or the translation of the fable, beginning verse 16. Now, if you have acted honorably, he's, again, still talking to the people of Shechem. If you have acted honorably and in good faith when you made Abimelech king, and if you have been fair to Jerubbaal and his family, and if you have treated him as he deserves, now let's stop right there. He's asking all these questions. He's putting all these conditions. If. What's the answer to all of them? They haven't. You haven't done it. Verse 17. And to think that my father fought for you, risked his life to rescue you from the hand of Midian, but you today have revolted against my father's family, murdered his 70 sons on a single stone, and made Abimelech, the son of his slave girl. So she's not, here she is not only a concubine, less than a wife, but she's a slave girl. King over, made Abimelech, son of the slave girl, king over citizens of Shechem, because he is your brother. If you have acted honorably and in good faith toward Jeroboam and his family, may Abimelech be your joy. He said, okay, if you've done all of these things, which are good things for you to do, and the things that you ought to do, then, hey, go ahead. Make Abimelech your king, and God bless you. Problem is, all these conditions weren't upheld, were they? And we know they weren't. Verse 20. But if you have not, in other words, if you haven't met these preconditions that he stated up in the previous verses, but if you have not, let fire come out from Abimelech. So he's equating Abimelech to what? What plant? Huh? The bramble, the thorn bush. That's where the fire is going to come from, right? But if you have not, let fire come out from Abimelech and consume you, citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, and let fire come out from you, citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, and consume Abimelech. Consume Abimelech. He's saying to the citizens, hey, you need to get rid of this guy. He's not good. He's useless. He's worthless. And he will bring ruin to you. Verse 21. Then Jotham fled, escaping to Beer. Now, Beer, the word Beer means a well. So evidently, nobody knows where this place is. It obviously was a place where there was a well, at least at some time, and it had enough hiding places around it, perhaps rocks or crevices that he could hide from. So he escaped to Beer, and he lived there because he was afraid of his brother Abimelech. All right. Right here I want to pause and read a passage from Dr. Block's commentary about this speech that Jotham has given. So bear with me here. It's 3 or 4 paragraphs. Jotham's speech, giving his view on citizenship, is rendered all the more significant since he functions here as the alter ego of the narrator. As it turns out, his speech is a literary cartoon whose message is remarkably relevant even in the modern world. Remember what I was talking about a while ago? First, whereas in the ancient Near East, kingship was viewed as positive, desirable, necessary, and coveted by all, Jotham perceives it as fundamentally negative. It is self-destructive and destructive of the very ones it is intended to protect. Of course, God's ideal was for people to follow his leadership and not rely on a king. Second, persons of honor engaged in constructive activity have no time for political agendas. All these various trees that had useful products, they weren't interested in becoming a king and telling the cedars how to live. And he applies that to politics. A guy I grew up with, he was 1 or 2 years older than me. He was in a fine family. His mother was my 2nd grade teacher. She was a beautiful woman, had a great rapport with the students. everybody liked the family. They were upstanding citizens of our small town. Well, this friend of mine, when he grew up, he became an attorney, and from there he became a candidate and was elected as a United States representative from that area. But he didn't stay in Washington very long. He finally came to the point where the politics turned him off from being a representative. And so he went back into private practice. He could have stayed. He was a very popular guy. He's a popular guy, popular politician. He could have stayed. But it reflects this idea here that of trees. You say, I can't put up with stuff. It's not good. It's not right. All the things that are going on in Washington, I'm going to go back into private practice where I can help people. So I can understand that. Persons voluntarily engaged in constructive activity have no time for political agendas. They are too caught up in serving humanity, and so the rule often follows to the despicable elements of society. I was involved in a discussion Sunday in Sunday school class, and we were talking about Darwin, we're talking about evolution, and versus intelligent design in creation and the arrival of species on Earth and da-da-da-da. And part of the problem is that the ruling establishment, scientific and educational, is latched on to the idea that evolution is proper and good and right. And the question came, well, how do you change that so that the idea of intelligent design can be taught to our children instead of godless, atheistic evolution? The answer is school boards. You get godly people elected to school boards. That's where the curriculum is established. That's where the textbooks are authorized and approved. And so if you want intelligent design or any other godly concept taught in public schools, you got to do it through the school board. But what do you got to do to get godly people on the school board? They got to be elected. They got to run for office. They got to spend money. They got to leave their families, things they'd rather be doing. They got to step out of their church jobs and others valuable service positions and step into this political arena. Third, rulers have a tendency to desire power for the worst reasons. Their own narcissistic self-interest. In order to gain power, they're often forced to offer promises they cannot fulfill. Oh, really? Really? Has that ever happened in this country? Oh, boy, I tell you what. Fourth, in the words of the modern sage, people tend to get the leaders they deserve. Jotham's fable is not only a polemic against certain kinds of kingship, it is actually directed primarily at those who are foolish enough to anoint a worthless man to be their king. Worthless man. But this is not to be confused with the ancient Israelite ideal by which the ideal monarch was the least member of the least family, of the least clan, of the least tribe. Who was that? David. Abimelech, the worthless man who was significant in his own eyes, contrasts with the early Saul and David. Although Jotham's fable can be interpreted as a general critique of kingship as a whole, and in context his speech represents the rejection of Abimelech's style of kingship in particular, as Webb has observed, and he has a Book of the Judges, and so he's another Bible scholar. Abimelech's crime is not that he became king, nor is the Shechemites' crime that they made him king. The issue is their treacherous acts against Gideon, the person God had chosen to be his agent of deliverance from the Midianites. Israel's well-being and her future are not to be found in new constitutional forms and political institutions, but in a wholehearted return to the Lord. In the book of Judges, the issue is primarily religious and spiritual, not political. Okay, so I thought that was pretty interesting the way that that he put that, and easy to translate the appropriateness of this moral teaching here to where we are today, 3,000 years later. And if you don't agree with that, John will take you on right after the lesson today. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. All right, let's see. We've got 6 minutes. Let's see what we can do with it. Verse 22. After Abimelech had governed Israel 3 years, all right, so he's been doing it for 3 years now. And by the words governing Israel probably means a local group of cities rather than the entire Israelite community. There's no indication that his kingdom was that large. It's probably local. Verse 23, God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, who acted treacherously against Abimelech. So God says, okay, time's up, Abimelech. Time's up, Shechemite. And so he sends an agent of evil, or allows an agent of evil to stir up treachery. Verse 24, God did this in order that the crime against Jerubbaal's 70 sons, the shedding of their blood, might be avenged on their brother Abimelech and on the citizens of Shechem, who had helped him murder his brothers. In opposition to him, these citizens of Shechem set men on the hilltops to ambush and rob everyone who passed by. And this was reported to Abimelech. All right, so the citizens of Shechem then say, okay, we've had enough of this Abimelech, and we want to push him out. So they sent out agents from Shechem to the highways and byways to rob, kill, harass ordinary people that were going by. And of course, who did the complaints go to? They went to Abimelech. And that was the purpose. Verse 25, in opposition to him, these citizens of Shechem, we already did it. 26, now Gaal, son of Ebed. Gaal right here, we don't know who he is. But it's obvious that he saw the problem with Abimelech, was losing favor. And in politics and other areas of life, when there's a vacuum, what happens? Somebody's going to fill it. It's not going to remain a vacuum. A leadership vacuum never remains intact. Someone steps in to fill it. Verse 26, now Gaal, son of Ebed, moved with his brothers into Shechem, and its citizens put their confidence in him. So they turned from then Abimelech to Baal. Not Baal, but Gaal. Verse 27, after they had gone out into the fields and gathered grapes and trodden them, they held a festival in the temple of their God. So it's harvest time for the grapes, and they process the grapes, and they turn the grapes and the juice into wine, and they're going to have a big festival to Baal. Big party. While they were eating and drinking, they cursed Abimelech. So the hatred and suspicion about Abimelech is spreading. Verse 28, then Gaal, son of Ebed, said, who is Abimelech, and who is Shechem, that we should be subject to him? Backstabbing. Isn't he Jerubbaal's son? Okay. And isn't Zebul his deputy? Well, Zebul was the Zebul was the governor of Shechem. So evidently Abimelech was king over several cities, and Zebul was the mayor in Shechem. Isn't Zebul his deputy? Serve the men of Haman, Shechem's father. Hamor was the man who founded the city of Shechem. So if you were a Shechemite, you could figuratively say that Hamor was your father. Okay? I live in the city that he founded, so he's my father. Serve the men of Hamor, Shechem's father. Why should we serve Abimelech? If only his people were under my command, that I would get rid of him. I would say to Abimelech, call out your whole army. So Gael is really putting on a campaign and starting rumors and politicking against Abimelech. It's going to be an overthrow. Verse 30. When Zebul, the governor of the city, heard what Gael and Ehud said, he was very angry. Undercover, he sent messengers to Abimelech, saying, Gael, son of Ebed, and his brothers have come to Shechem and are stirring up the city against you. Now then, during the night, you and your men should come and lie in wait in the fields. In the morning at sunrise, advance against the city. When Gael and his men come out against you, do whatever your hand finds to do. So Abimelech has this governor, this mayor in the city, who has reported to him Gael's efforts to undermine Abimelech's leadership. And the mayor of the city gives Abimelech an opening to ambush Gael and his men and put down the rebellion. Verse 33, in the morning at sunrise, advance against the city. When Gael and his men come out against you, do whatever your hand finds to do. Verse 34. So Abimelech and all his troops set out by night and took up concealed positions near Shechem in 4 companies. Now Gael, son of Ebed, had gone out and was standing at the entrance of the city gate just as Abimelech and his soldiers came out from their hiding place. So Abimelech and his soldiers are hiding around, waiting for dawn when the city gate is opened. And when the gate was opened, then Gael and his entourage step out and have a look, see. Verse 36. When Gael saw them, he said to Zebul, look, people are coming down from the tops of the mountains. Zebul replied, you're mistaking the shadows of the mountains for men. But Gael spoke up again. Look, people are coming down from the center of the land, and a company is coming from the direction of the soothsayer's tree. These are important landmarks. Verse 38, when Zebul said to him, where is your big talk now, you who said, who is Abimelech, that he should be subject to him? Aren't these the men you ridicule? Go out and fight them. So Zebul, who's a mayor of the city, is playing both sides against one another. And he begins to mock Gael because Gael was mocking Abimelech. And he says, okay, hey, you're mocking Abimelech. What are you going to do about it? Go after him. Attack him. Verse 39, so Gael led out the citizens of Shechem and fought Abimelech. Abimelech chased him away, chased him, and many fell wounded in the fight, all the way to the entrance of the gate. Abimelech stayed in Arumah. I don't know where Arumah is. I couldn't find it. And Zebul drove Gael and his brothers out of Shechem. So the rebellion then was put down by Abimelech. Now, we're going to have to stop right there where time's up. But we'll pick up at verse 42, and we'll see the inglorious end of Abimelech and next time. And then we'll get into these other smaller judges in the beginning of chapter 10. And we'll get into the story of Jephthah, which is interesting in itself. Okay? Thank you very much. Mark says we've got cookies. Maybe a donut or two. We've got one donut. It's got a hole in it. Oh. Well, put it back then. All right, see ya.
Ray, I think we know now where our politicians read the Bible.